Hey everybody, it's Brian. Before I did this Seahawks stuff full time, I worked as a manager and senior leader, so I know how lonely it can be to try to find someone you trust to talk through people issues, org issues, process issues as you try to lead an organization. Ryan Cleveland of RyanCleveland.com is someone I trust to have those conversations with. He specializes in working with CEOs and business owners, and you can get a complimentary free discovery session to see if it's a good fit for you. Just go to RyanCleveland.com to sign up and start now. Hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Real Hawk Talk. I am Brian Nemhauser. You can find me on Twitter and Instagram and now Blue Sky at Hawk Blogger. It's been kind of crazy. Even since this morning, I talked to some folks about Blue Sky and they got to 15 million users. And then I checked by the afternoon, it was 15 and a half. It's been just blowing up. So it's kind of fun to be there at the beginning of something, even though it's been around for a while. It's definitely taken on a new, persona in the last week or so. So cool to see the growth there. Cool to see that. And the person who introduced me to it, or at least harassed me to get over there, is on the show with us tonight. Dayna O'Gorman. Dayna, how are you doing?
Good. I'm doing really good. It was time. We needed to make the move. I told you off the air that I had signed up on Blue Sky way back, over a year ago, and then just kind of forgot about it. So I was really glad to see it kind of pick up over there. And it's been live and fun and I'm having a good time. But otherwise, wish my team brought me a little more joy, but otherwise I'm doing all right.
It's been a rough year to be a Seahawks fan. It has been. And the person who's been talking to me about it the most before it happened, during it happening, and after it happens is Jeff Simmons. He's with us again. Jeff, how are you doing, buddy?
I'm all right. I can relate to what Dayna's saying, but there's just so much bad football right now. It's just it's. I know there's been a kind of a joke, whether the game's been ugly. What I mean by that is there's so many bad teams. It's every time I'm want to get more down in the Seahawks, I see what's happening right now with the Colts. And I'm maybe we don't have it so bad, but then the Seahawks play and then it's okay, maybe we do. But so it's been a whirlwind of the season for sure.
I want to get into that because I think the emotional toll it takes and the psychology that how to handle yourself. I want to talk to you guys how you guys have been handling that. But I do want to close the loop a little bit on a story from this morning that I got to tell people. My youngest, Nate, who I think folks know has autism or is autistic, and he's 20 and at the point where they're he's trying to look for work, and he applied for a job at our local Pagliacci Pizza and got it. He's starting for just a few hours a week. Today was his first day. And one of the perks of the job is after your shift, you get free pizza. And I just thought folks would want to see what pure joy looks like. If every job ended with you feeling this excited about what you just did, I think we'd all feel very different. So, I'll just say this, Pagliacci is a partner and obviously we love working with them. It means so much to the people that are the disabled folks that are trying to get work, to their families that are trying to get them off and feeling like they're having a contribution and feeling like they're getting pride in their days. And so when a business takes the opportunity to do something that's not easy for them, they have to be patient, they have to be, accommodating, it means a lot. So hopefully if somebody out there is considering doing this for somebody else, just know it's a huge, world changer for people and a great way to make life a little bit better. So just wanted to share that. We're very happy in the Hawk Blogger household tonight. It was a big victory. I think he folded about 40 or 50 pizza boxes. So he's on his way. with that, let's talk about emotions, because I just kind of got into it a little bit. I didn't cry during that, so that's a good step. It's mostly happy news. I feel like I have been through the experience with this Seahawks team for years, where you kind of build yourself up into believing there's something, and then you find out, no, they're not. And then, maybe they do something that gets you hopeful again, and then they crash it down. And in the last year was the worst, because I ended up just actively disliking watching my own team. I'd never gotten to that point, but I got there last year. This year, it feels like there's been some really awful football played. And there's been times where I definitely had lost my patience with the run defense. But I think, guys, I figured out, if my team plays run defense, I think I can handle everything else. Because that Rams game was atrocious. And I left that game, I feel like kind of chipper. That's weird. I acknowledge that's weird. But so that's why I wanted to check in with you two. Dayna, let's start with you. It's been too long since we've talked. Mm-hmm. You talked about you wish your team was doing more. What is your ride? Because I know a lot of times you kind of protect yourself. You don't watch a live game sometimes. What's been your journey so far? You didn't even have high hopes for this team going into the year.
I didn't. And that's what's kind of weird. So I am old, right? And so I've been a Seahawks fan forever, including in the 90s, right? So I'm used to bad football from Seattle. I know what that feels like. I know what that's like. But we had such a good run, and as annoying as the end of the Pete Carroll era got, I told you guys at the beginning of the season, I just like to know what to expect, right? That's what I like. I like to know what to expect, good or bad, mediocre. I like to know what to expect. And what has happened this season, sadly, is what I thought was going to happen. I was the last one of all of us on board with Mike Macdonald. In fact, when I was in Seattle not too long ago, Nathan and I were sitting at the Mariners game with our friends, and he looked at me and he folded his arms and he's like, "So are you in on Mike Macdonald yet?" And I was like, "No, it's not over yet." Like, I'm trying, right? Like, I was trying. What I think where I'm at with this is I don't like to watch my team be decimated. And so often for years now, I have skipped the 49ers games. I watched them after. Even when the Legion of Boom was at their height, I still didn't always watch those games. And that is just to protect, because I get up, down. You guys understand. And now I just get irritated through the games. And I don't like that feeling. I decided after it was after the Bills game, really, that I was like, I'm going to start watching people. I'm going to focus on what they're doing. Are they getting better? Are they doing what they're supposed to be doing? Didn't help at all, because they were still terrible, right? So I think where I'm at now is a little bit of frustration. I'm not, trying to be a Debbie Downer or anything, but I think Mike Macdonald was an amazing defensive coordinator under two amazing head coaches. And so coming in as a head coach, you got to give him some time. I'm still on the learning curve with him. Like, I get that, right? I understand. I'm very frustrated with the offense and the way that's being called. I'm not a University of Washington person, and so I know that you guys are real loyal to Grubb, but I just have not liked what I've seen so far. The defense has its moments, right? Like, sometimes they're really good. I think where I'm mad now and I'm irritated with is with the front office, because when they got rid of Pete Carroll, I thought, okay, you can bring in this new kid, this young guy that has never done this before, because I had trust in the front office and what was going on there. That trust is now waning a little bit, if I'm being really honest with you. So now literally I'm to the point I'm watching these games to see who stays next year. That's literally where I'm at this point.
Interesting. Jeff, obviously we've been through the ups and downs. You also did not have huge expectations going into the year. Where are you emotionally? We talked a lot about analytically and like where things are, where you'd grade it. Like, where are you in your investment in the Seahawks?
My investment in the Seahawks, I think just because I'm a sicko at heart, I'm always going to be pretty high. I love the NFL to a fault, and the Seahawks are the one team I truly have emotion for. And so they could stink, they could be unwatchable, it probably says more about me and how I prioritize my life. Probably not the best quality, but emotionally, I'm still all in. Like, I'm watching press conferences, I'm following the team, I'm watching games. If you're asking like how I'm feeling about the Seahawks, or I won't say I'm like really down. I think I'm honest. I think I've come to like grips with what's this team is. It's been a roller coaster for me. Like, I was very consistent on my like you said before, like, this is going to take time. Like, this is a complex defense. There's a lot of moving parts with the roster. They're young. It's a new staff. And then they go out, they go 3-0. And then my expectations get out of whack. And the next stretch from there was so bad, it made me sad. And then then the Atlanta game happens, and it's like, oh, maybe there's something here. And then the Buffalo game happens. And then the Rams game, it was like, I was so down going in. I thought they were going to get blown out. And a couple things happened that I thought were meaningful. It was the defense, and then JSN, who I've been kind of the guy for years. And then seeing like that blue chip performance, I was like, holy crap. And then they end up losing the game in a way that takes like insane series of events. So it's been like this. I think I'm back to where I started, where like, okay, it's been a wild roller coaster. They've been a lot more sloppy than I would have guessed. When I thought it was a new staff, I thought there'd be like communication errors and just mistakes. The sloppiness and the pre-snap penalties and some of the offensive issues. Like, Dayna, I am not a University of Washington fan. I don't follow college football. So I was new to Ryan Grubb. I've been super frustrated. I think he's done some really good things, but really I'm at the point where like, I just want to see a physical team again. And like, I hate that I'm like super envious of like the Chargers right now and like what Jim Harbaugh's done. And I know like Harbaugh's becoming like kind of like a caricature of himself, and like he's rebranded himself as like the fun grandpa or something. But like, he knows what he's doing. And like, that team has become a Harbaugh team already. And McDonald's had to learn how to be a head coach. And it's been tougher than I thought it would. But I still listen to him talk every day. And I don't know if I'm a sucker. I don't know if it's like some people I know. I have a buddy in Toronto who's a Seahawks fan who thinks he's kind of a fraud. He thinks he's Brandon Staley. And I'm like,
oh, ouch.
I don't know. Like, you may be right, but like, I listen to him talk every day, and I believe in what he says. And I'm curious. So I'm not at the point I'm just like, okay, they're not making the playoffs. I'm probably throwing that out the window. There are some real problems with this roster. Dayna nailed. Like, if you're not a Seahawks fan and objectively worried about the state of the front office and looking at the history of moves, looking at their totality of moves, but right now, like, that is an issue. We can't deal with that now. I just want to see the rest of the year. Can they be a physical defense? Can they play run defense? I don't think they can fix a lot of the offensive line issues. Most of them, Abe Lucas is coming back, but can they be like a team that there's something to build off of? That was my initial thought going in. There's 8 games left. Show me something.
Can I say something about what Jeff said too? He hit it on the head. I have no idea who this team is.
Yeah.
I always knew. I mean, we knew who Pete Carroll's teams were, at least trying to be. Like, we knew who they were. I have no idea who this team is. I don't know what. I can't wrap my hand. They just are blah. I said to you before we started, this is my 3rd podcast this week. First time I've mentioned Seahawks, because they just are no consequence right now. And I think that's because we don't know who they are. But more importantly, Jeff, what you said is you still are all in when you listen to him. His press conference today, I was like, mwah, mwah. I got nothing out of that other than Abe Lucas kind of, maybe he didn't know if he played with pads or not. I was like, what? It was just, and I think that's part. So that leads my frustration part, Brian, is I just don't know who the hell this team is.
I'm totally with you on the identity part. We've that's been something we've talked about. I talked about that heading into the Detroit game. I was like, this is a team that knows exactly who they are. They are going to be that regardless of who they're playing. Every single week, you are going to have to deal with what the Detroit Lions are. Now, you might find a way to beat them, but they're not going to be any like feeling out portion of the game. They're going to come in, they're going to try to run it down your throat. And you just know what you're getting. You play the San Francisco 49ers, who we're going to be talking about tonight. You know, exactly who they want to be, who they expect to be, how they're going to go about it. There are things that happen when you've been together for a little bit and you've had some success. You need both of those things to where you now have an identity where it's repeatable and you come each week. And I think with any new coach, let alone an entire new staff, hasn't worked together, new scheme on offense, new scheme on defense, all of those things, there is a process where you are learning your team. And that, like, it's a two-way street. You don't just come in and say, this is exactly who we are. Jim Harbaugh might be able to do that and might have like clarity of who he is going to force his team to be. But I think there's coaches like Mike Macdonald that are trying to learn what his team does well. And I think that there's been enough things that they have not done well that it's been very hard. It's been like trying to climb a pole that is coated with Crisco. Like, there's been no ability to get traction. And then they talk about stacking wins. I almost asked this of him today, but I thought it would be too potentially interpreted the wrong way. I was like, when you're not stacking wins, how do you track progress? And Brian, I know what he would have said.
You should have asked that. That's a great question.
I don't think I should have.
That's a great question.
But I think they're fine. I think they're figuring that out. And one of the things that's critical, and it's going to affect my mood about this team, is do they build on what we saw defensively last week? Or do they slide back down the pole, hit the ground, and you're back to square one? That's what this week's about for me. Obviously, I want the win. We'll talk about all that. But I want to see, I don't even need to see as good of a performance. What I cannot abide in this game is a repeat of what we saw the last time these two teams played, where the 49ers ran for 230 plus yards, whatever it was, just absolutely owned that defense for most of the game. I cannot see that again. Now, if they do better, then I feel like, okay, like personally, I'm okay. And I've been rewatching Game of Thrones from the beginning. So I feel a little bit like Jon Snow here, in terms of Mike Macdonald, because I'm definitely all in on Mike Macdonald. Nothing's changed there. There was a little bit when the run defense started going on where I was like, am I going to be Prince Oberyn? Like a lot of flailing, but in the end, I'm just going to get crushed. So I really, really like Mike Macdonald. I like who he is as a person, and I like who he is as a coach. I don't think he has everything figured out, but he's a guy I'm more than willing to give some time to help figure this out and continue to be a little bit. That's one of the things I love talking to you, Dayna, because you see it differently. I don't know why people aren't connecting to a guy that I see as very genuine and very earnest and whatever. So it's interesting to hear, different perspectives on that.
I want to say I don't think that he's not genuine. I think he's very genuine. I think that I think he's trying to be as honest as he can be. He's learning that coach speak, so to say. I think the problem that I am having with him is that I need more from him, and not verbally, but like on the field. Okay, this isn't working. Let's try this. This isn't working. Let's try this. And I don't really know that I've seen that quite yet. But again, I'm in no rush to get rid of the guy. It's not like I'm calling for his head or anything. I think he's going to take a few years to fall into this. But I think I expected better adjustments, at least on the defensive side. And maybe you're right. Maybe this week we will see it start to stack up after that Rams game where the defense did look better. And that would be encouraging. But it's not a personal thing with it's maybe more of a personality thing.
Is it like a vanilla personality? Because
yeah, he's real beige.
yeah, but like even Harbaugh, like I don't want to make this like Jim Harbaugh show, but like he's in this like new version of him. He's like done a good job capturing the locker room and like some of those clips after the game, and you can see the team is like connected with him as like the weird old guy. Like McDonald like has been kind of missing that. I think like the EQ, like are all these guys going to line up to fight for this guy? Like that's the kind of thing that seems a little missing. Like I want to see more on the field for sure, but like I want to see the guys come out and play with fire. play with energy.
I do miss
Yeah,
that.
I think that's right. And the thing I've observed with him is he's not like, not every coach is Pete Carroll or Jim Harbaugh or
No.
like, everyone has their own style. I mean, even Andy Reid, I don't know that Andy Reid is like the big, speech guy.
No.
Like what I think Mike McDonald's path is going to be putting things on the field that work. And the guys buying into that, and him being smarter than the people and working harder and grinding more than other people. And that's why it's so important. He's got enough talent on defense. He should be able to right the ship this year. That is the number one thing we need to see. And they're going to be facing good offense after good offense after good offense in the second half of the year. So there's going to be plenty of opportunity to prove that this defense is going in the right direction. Jeff, I'm kind of curious, this is the first chance that we're going to have to see them face a team for the second time, right? First time. He's had a bye week. They've gotten rid of both linebackers. They're going to have Byron Murphy, who they didn't have. They're going to have Reek Woolen, who they didn't have. They're going to play Kobe Bryant, who was not the safety for that game. Sounds like probably Jarek Reed might be the other safety. They're going to have Roy Robertson Harris instead of Mike Morris. Like, there's a lot of change on that side of the ball. Josh Jobe instead of Trey Brown. Like, keep going. What is your expectation? Like, what is your expectation for how this will look relative to that first matchup between these two teams on defense specifically?
Like, I think in this game, I'm hoping to see less explosive runs. And a lot of those, if you did the show where you went through all the good run defense they did, other than those big busts, which came from some of those depth guys you mentioned being on the field. I think a big part of this game is going to be, how do some of the guys who have never played against Kyle Shanahan before fare in that matchup? Because what he does and the discipline he puts and the pressure, like Tyrese Knight, like this is a tough first start. What Kyle does with eye discipline, with a little trickeration, and like it's a lot. Josh Jobe has never played against Kyle Shanahan before. Like it's putting a lot of stress on some of those guys. I don't know how much Kobe Bryant has played against him. And like we saw Woolen the first year, he had a lot of trouble with when Shanahan was moving things around and was tricking things. It's a lot to ask. So I'm like, conflict is like, yeah, I want to see better, but like, how do you kind of weigh like, yeah, I don't know how easy it's going to be. So I want to see more like strong defense on early downs. I think that's.
I'm gonna interrupt you because I know you.
Yeah.
You are dreading this game. You think the 49ers are going to roll over them. So tell me, man, what do you realistically like? What would make you encouraged on the defensive side of the ball? Forget the score. What would make you encouraged?
Good run defense, number one, by
Okay.
far, number one. And number two, they need to make Brock Purdy look uncomfortable. I know they pressured him a lot last week, the last time they played him, but it still felt so easy to move around and create. I want to see him looking uncomfortable. I want to see him throwing the ball into the dirt. I want to see him missing throws. I want him to look uncomfortable. And that's what they did with Stafford. There were so many plays where he whipped the ball into the ground or he looked like, and so Shanahan, Purdy, they're going to get them a couple times, but I want to see him looking uncomfortable and be able to get into these third downs. That's what I'm looking for.
Yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense. I asked McDonald about that today. I was like, you had 26 pressures. You only had, depending on your counting, either 2 or 4 quarterback hits and no sacks.
Yeah.
Purdy was a magician. He was like Flutie-esque, moving out. There are pressures, Dayna. Like, I am not a X's and O's football guy. Everyone knows that by now. But like, I do know that when you're rushing the passer, you got to attack the outside shoulder because every quarterback spins backwards most of the time to avoid. There are a number of times the Seahawks defenders just went right inside and Purdy just spins right outside and makes an easy throw. And so I'd love to see some of those changes this time. Like if you're going to miss him, force him up into the pocket, force him into somebody else. Don't let him escape to the outside. And let's be honest, This 49ers just got the offensive player of the year back, Christian McCaffrey. This is going to be his second week. They have Juwan Jennings back now playing the X receiver in place of Brandon Ayuk. Ricky Pearsall, their rookie, has been playing well. They still have George Kittle playing extremely well. Deebo Samuel has terrorized the Seahawks. Knowing that the Seahawks have not been the better team for a while, what do you need to see this week, Dayna, to feel like, okay, that was credible?
To be quite honest with you, I think the only thing that I need to make myself feel better about where we are at is completely stopping Christian McCaffrey, stopping that run game. To me, I think the Seattle corners will do a good enough job with the wide receivers. Jeff's absolutely right. They're going to get us. They're just gonna, and that's just going to happen. But for me, having some more secure line and being able to stop Christian McCaffrey and not let him run. God, do you remember those games last year? It was disgusting.
Oh, the first play.
Right? Oh my God.
The first play.
It absolutely gutted me because there's no coming back from that once that, I swear. And so I think that would make me be like, all right, look at that. We actually managed to stop Christian McCaffrey, right? Like that was a good thing. I think making Purdy uncomfortable is a really good point. I have a question for you guys about this though. So Ernest Jones, how big of a difference do you think he will make? Because I was looking up his stats, 24 tackles, 13 solo tackle plus, but he had 15 tackles against the Bills. Adding him to the line, how can do you think they could use him and Leonard Williams, who I know didn't practice today, but it's Wednesday, it doesn't matter, to make that better? Or can he be a key for McCaffrey? I just really want them to not run that ball down our throat. I can't
Spoken
do it.
of like a true Seahawks fan. I think all three of us, I think everyone not listening is on the same page there. You raised my eyebrows when you said totally stop Christian McCaffrey. That's a high bar to me.
You're damn right it is. But he didn't play all that great last week. But honestly, because I'm not going to lie, I held on to him in fantasy football, so I know how he played last week. But he's coming off an injury, just a second game. But honest to God, if they could just, it just would make me feel better. Yeah.
I mean, certainly I think everyone, if they really shut down Christian McCaffrey, that would be a huge accomplishment. I'll say this, Jeff, I mean, answering kind of Dayna, but building on it. I want to see things that make me believe that things are different. And the things that can make me believe things are different are two things. One, different outcomes, right? Just like, okay, you all of a sudden, like last week or 2 weeks ago, run defense was significantly better and stayed better throughout. Like that's an outcome I can believe in. The other thing that can be different is the people. And if I'm seeing, okay, Ernest Jones is the guy, he's making a play that was not being made before. Awesome. Tyrese Knight, I'm really interested. Like Mike McDonald talked about it today. What's the biggest issue for rookie linebackers? In his experience, it is getting off blocks. He has seen progress in Tyrese Knight being able to do that. I think Tyrese Knight already was better at seeking the ball and a run defense kind of situation than the other linebackers the Seahawks had. If we see Byron Murphy make an impact in this game, if we see like all these new names, right? Like that weren't in that game, that will, even if it doesn't end up with the exact same outcome, I'll start to be able to kind of piece together, all right, this is where this puzzle is going to start, fitting.
Yeah, that makes sense. And like the Rams game was so encouraging because the Seattle front really took over a lot of that first half. And they really were kind of dictating a lot of the game before kind of things spiraled from self-destruction. But if they can have, I don't know if I'll have that same impact, but if they can like kind of be like kind of the guys that aren't getting pushed around anymore, kind of the guys that push back. And that's what I say. I want them to be a physical team. I thought Ernest Jones was awesome. I know he put up a lot of stats in the Bills game, but I thought that Rams game was his by far best performance. And the thing I liked about him is he's seen Shanahan twice a year for a number of years. He knows what this looks like. He knows his personnel. I think having him in the middle makes a big difference. And this is the kind of game where I think having him versus a Dodson or Baker, who's been playing this team for years. But again, I think what Brian's saying is totally right. You want to see their big guys look like big guys. And that's Murphy, that's Williams. And then what I mean by big guys, I mean kind of their studs, Mafe, Hall, Witherspoon. Like Woolen. Like, we need to see these guys looking their best against the best competition. And we haven't seen a lot of that. And things like that would be very encouraging.
Can I ask you guys what you thought about Sherman's comments about Dodson? Let's said
talk about that.
That by getting rid of Dodson was admitting that you screwed up getting rid of Bobby Wagner and Jordan Brooks.
Jeff, why don't you go first?
That was interesting. I love Sherm, though. You guys know.
Sherm is very consistent. He's an elite pot stirrer. He's very set in his ways, and he's very emotional. And, like, look, if we're being honest, like, I get where he's coming from. Like, they've struck out a linebacker. Bobby's his good buddy. He even said in the video, like, I miss having Bobby to have lunch with. Like, I'm not making this up. He said that. So you can see, like, it's emotional. He's upset. Richard is still upset that he got cut by John Schneider. And that comes up every time he talks about Schneider. Business of the NFL is people who are injured and they get cut. Peyton Manning got cut because his neck was injured. Like, Sherman's never quite gone over that. And this relationship with Bobby. And so he's like, I get what he's saying. He's right. Bobby would have been a better linebacker at his price point than the two guys they had. But watching Bobby objectively last year, like, he looked really weak in coverage. I know. And I'll say at the end of the day, like, Sherman's not wrong. Like, they would have had it. It would have been a great guy to bring back. But, like, after coming out of last year and what he looked like, and I think it was pretty clear that Pete drove a lot of the Bobby reunion. I think if we were, like, objectively analyzing it, I would have been pretty surprised that Bobby came back. I think it's kind of a nothing burger, but I give Sherman credit. He's on brand. He's consistent. But, like, if you listen to him, he's very emotional in his opinions, and he's great. Like, he's great at what he does. But, like, I don't know if Dodson getting cut was, like, a lot of people went to the Jordan Brooks route. Sherman went to that Wagner route. So the Jordan Brooks people are using it to prove their point. The Wagner people are using it to prove their points. So I'm not sure I came to that conclusion. If you want to be like John Schneider at a crap offseason, I can live with that story. But I think coming out of last year, I would have been pretty surprised if they brought back Bobby. So I don't think. Yeah. Brian, I don't know if you saw it differently.
Yeah, no, I mean, I saw that when it happened yesterday. And I think everybody can relate to when you've had you've gone to war, like, war is the wrong phrase. When you've battled in games with a brother and you've won a Super Bowl, you've been to the mountaintop, you've gone through adversity, you came in pretty much together, like, a year apart. You know how, I mean, Bobby Wagner is, like, one of the best people on the whole planet. Like anybody that knows Bobby Wagner knows how great he is, not only on the field, but off the field. Like, all of that, of course, you're going to use every opportunity to kind of dunk on somebody for, like, you turn this guy away. Like, of course. And I think that's hard to argue with on face value. Like, totally get it.
Yeah.
From a team building perspective, if you put your hands over the names for a second, the Seahawks were not building to win the Super Bowl this year. You have really very little excuse and little reason to bring in a 34-year-old linebacker who you know is not going to be your future at a very critical position for a coach who really depends on that position. And I wrote about this yesterday, I think it's very reasonable that John Schneider said and Mike McDonald said, I don't want to sign anyone to a multi-year deal. And that's why I'm not doing Jordan Brooks, because, like, that's putting a ring on it, and maybe I'm not ready for that yet. So let's get a couple guys in the room, in the building, on one-year deals that we can see what they can do. And honest to God, I don't think they ended up in a bad place. So, like, everyone's trying to dunk on them right now, and I'm looking at the linebacker room, and I'm like, Ernest Jones is probably the best middle linebacker the Seahawks have had in years. He has work to do, but I think he is. And Tyrese Knight is a rookie that they felt good enough about that they let go one of their guys to start him. And we'll see. Maybe that'll be a total joke. But if he works out and you got a 23-year-old and a 24-year-old at the linebacker spot, then I'll look at them and say, John Schneider and Mike McDonald, like, well done. So I think everyone can dunk on them now. I think from a roster building perspective, I don't have nearly, like, I'd give it a C, not an F.
And I think Sherman is right that this team is lacking people, especially on defense, of, like, dudes to set the standard. And I think Sherman's right that there is no one really. I don't know a lot of these guys personally. I don't know any of them personally, but like what Bobby does is kind of just set the standard. They don't have that, and frankly, I think Bobby ended up in a better situation. And I know Sherman's upset that his buddy's not around, and rightfully so. But like Bobby ended up in the perfect spot. Like set the culture for a team, guys he loves, guys he's worked with, Dan Quinn, Ken Norton Jr., and they're a good team. They're a lot better than Seattle. So
I will bet you, Jeff, if you ask Bobby Wagner, can Ernest Jones set the standard? If you ask Aaron Donald, can Ernest Jones set the standard? They'd both say yes. So I think people just don't know him yet. I can tell you just see him in the locker room interacting with him. He's different than the other guys in that locker room. Not in a bad way, not in some like he's a godly person or anything like that. He is just he knows who he is. Like it really comes across. And I'm interested to see how that affects the rest of the team the rest of the year.
Good, because they need dudes like that.
They do.
That makes me happy. Yeah.
They absolutely do. Yeah. I loved when I asked him what he wore for his Halloween costume, his favorite Halloween costume. He said it was Urkel. You got to be like, you got to know who you are if you're willing to wear an Urkel costume. So let's go over some of the news before we get into Patreon questions. Abe Lucas did practice. First of all, he was activated off PUP. George Fant was put on IR. Abe Lucas was limited in practice today, so we don't know exactly what that means. Mike McDonald did confirm when I asked today, as Dayna mentioned, that he has participated in padded practices, and so he's had contact. So he'll go more full go now. DK Metcalf practiced full participant today. A little bit surprising, Leonard Williams has a foot injury we don't really know about. He did not practice today. Not sure whether that's anything to be worried about. Noah Fant did not practice today. I'm assuming he's not going to play. Brady Russell did not practice today. I think that he is a danger of maybe not playing. And so that could mean more Pharaoh Brown for whatever that's worth. That's probably why N'Keal Harry was signed to the practice squad. The other news that I'll bring up comes from the 49ers side, which is Nick Bosa said that he has never played in as much pain as he did on Sunday, and he is questionable. Like it's dicey whether he's going to make it for the game on Sunday. So that came out today. That's, I think, pretty significant news. The other thing that came out today, a couple things for the 49ers, Yatir Gross-Matos, I don't know how to pronounce his first name, sorry, has been on the IR. I think they're looking like he was a full participant. He's ready to come off. He's an edge player, so that would help them, especially if Bosa is out. Otherwise, I don't think there was anything like George Kittle, they're nursing his hamstring and all that kind of stuff. But otherwise, I think no major news. The Bosa news is probably the biggest of all of those things. Anything I missed? Anything you guys saw that I didn't cover?
Nope, that was it.
That's about it, yeah.
Let's take some Patreon questions before I turn our attention back to this game, because I do want to talk about this game more. As Dayna looks those up, folks, if you haven't gone on patreon.com/hawkblogger, you should. You get access to all the audio versions of Hawkblogger Mornings, the Emergency Pod, and you get access to the Slack channel where you get to ask us questions each and every week. And Dayna is going to tell us what the questions were this week.
All right. Let me see. Am I muted? No, I'm not. I always am muted when I go look these up. So sorry. Okay. The first one is going to be from Hawks fan Matt Man. I've been a Seahawks fan since the mid 80s. In my teens and 20s, a Seahawks loss would basically ruin my week. Nowadays, it might sting for about an hour and then I can move on. I'm curious on how your perspectives about losses or bad stretches have evolved over the years. Do they bother you as much as they used to, Jeff?
In years where I think the team is really good, the losses really bother me. In years where the team is kind of middling, it's been easier for me to accept them. I'm mad the day of sometimes, or I can see my emotions are not the same, but it's pretty embarrassing that how much a win or loss dictates my mood for the whole next week. And it does. But I'll say, like, in a year like this where I've come to grips pretty easily with reality, it doesn't, like, I was so mad about that Rams game, but by the next Tuesday, I was fine. If I thought this team was like a pretty good team and they lost that game, I'd still be in the dumps. So I don't think as I've gotten older, I've gotten better. I think in some cases I've gotten worse. It really depends on my total outlook of the team, but I still take losses pretty badly. I wish it didn't impact my mood, but it does.
Yeah. I have a friend who stopped going to the games. They're a Kansas City Chiefs fan. They stopped going to the games years ago, pre-Patrick Mahomes, because the anger could not be controlled. So he just stayed home. It's pretty interesting. Brian, it was for both of you.
I definitely, it doesn't bother me as much as it used to. And it's not because it doesn't bother me. I just was clinically affected by Seahawks games. I mean, my whole week was fried before. And like my lovely wife who put up with things with me, I don't know how she did it. But so I've just kind of mellowed in age. But I was also just trying to think, that's why I was looking while you guys were talking. Like, when's the last time they really had a game that mattered? And I don't mean like for the playoffs or like, but I mean really mattered, where something was really at stake. Like this is a team that we really believe in. I'm even going back to 2020 when they were 12-4 and won the division. I don't know.
There was a game where they were like 6-0 and they blew a game in overtime to Arizona that year.
Where we were 5-0, yes.
Yeah, we were like all in on that team, and like they lost in one of like the dumbest fashions I've ever seen. I think like someone ran offside when they lost in overtime. That was the one where like I thought that team was good. Like that was like the let Russ cook year, like MVP Russ. The second half of the year kind of exposed that team, so it was easier to accept like the playoff game. But I think that one game was like the last time where like I really got irked by like a Seahawks loss.
Yeah, it's been a long time for me.
I don't know, that Tampa Bay loss in Germany, Brian. I remember.
Well, so like
you weren't even there. I was there in the damn building.
No, but Brian was all in on that team.
I'm not saying I wasn't like I'm not affected, but I mean, even then, I don't think I thought these teams were like Super Bowl, like where there was really something on the line. I think it's been since 2015. Since you really believe that the Seahawks were a possible Super Bowl team, not just a good team or like maybe they could get somewhere, but like this team could go all the way.
Yeah, fair.
And without that, I think it's a little harder to be, to your point, Jeff, to really feel like devastated by like, okay, so we're more mediocre than we thought.
Yeah.
It's kind of what it comes down to.
So you don't have like the 2018 Evan moment, like.
No. Yeah. Yeah, fair.
Oh
yeah.
my goodness. Oh my goodness. Okay. Next, it's another question from Hawks fan Matt. In a recent stream with Jeff, Rob Stanton laid out a theory based on reading some tea leaves that the Seahawks could possibly be interested in pursuing Quinn Ewers in next year's draft. Neither Brian or Rob are exactly fans of his. I'm wondering if you see any potential for development in his raw skills a la Josh Allen. Brian, I'm going to give that one to you.
Big. Like I want the Cater Kudo or whatever thumbs down that he was doing in the Dolphins game against the Rams. I've seen that guy play. I saw him last year. I've seen enough. The guy does not have the arm talent. He does not accurate enough. He is not the leader that you want. I've then heard Byron Murphy talk about like how much everyone already even last year knew that it's Arch Manning, that everyone in the locker is like, that guy is the real dude. And then you ask him about Quinn Ewers, and this is on Jonathan Hankins' podcast, by the way, which is great. And you could just kind of see and hear Byron Murphy being like, oh yeah, like he's good. You know, like he's not the guy. Don't waste my time with like Sam Howell. I would much rather see Sam Howell get a chance than Quinn Ewers, a million times. And that's not because I think Sam Howell is going to be the next franchise quarterback. I just think there is 0.0% chance that Quinn Ewers is going to be it. So that's where I am on him.
Yeah, it's almost like you have an opinion on that. That's no, just kidding. I love it. This one is from Troy Fagan. If Lucas plays well and Bradford remains a problem, how quickly should they pivot to moving Williams to right guard and start Olu or Sundell at center? Jeff. Yeah. Sorry.
Well, I said they should do that last week when Brian brought it up. I was ready to do it right away. So if Anthony Bradford keeps looking the way he is, I'm going to advocate to take him off the field. And if Connor Williams keeps snapping the ball over Gino's head or snapping the ball where Gino has to catch the ball out here, I think it's going to be a 2-for-1 move. But it's a lot easy for me from my couch to be like, put in a rookie center who's been undrafted free agent. And like, that could screw up everything. So if I keep seeing bad snaps or Anthony Bradford look like crap, me from my couch is going to keep saying, okay, do it. But it's one of those things where
have
like
you ever heard a coach say, I mean, probably have, but there's not much fainter praise than it is what it is. Our right guard position is what it is.
That jumped off the page to me.
Yeah.
I was like, holy
I kind
crap.
of was like, thank God. At least as a fan, you're like, okay, you see it too. Thank you. Okay, good. We're on the same
so
page.
many coaches would blow smoke like, oh, well, he's learning. He's a development plan. He's getting better in practice. It's refreshing to hear honesty.
You're right.
It'd be more refreshing to see good guard play, but that's another thing entirely.
Oh, good God.
All right. Brian, this one is for you. Braxton asks, if JS makes a move to extend Charles Cross this offseason, what do you think that deal would look like?
So that's an Evan question, but I will tell you. I will tell you what I think that would look like. So if I go to Over the Cap and I look at left tackle and I look at the biggest deals out there, APY for the top one is Trent Williams, $27.5 million, $82 million deal. Christian Darrisaw just signed a deal roughly the same age as Charles Cross, $104 million deal, $26 million, $77 million guaranteed. I think it'll be around that.
Okay.
I think you're going to be talking 25 to 27 million a year APY. The guarantees are always hard to guess, but and I think you'd sign him for. I think he might go longer than 4 years. I think this might be a situation with a young left tackle where the Seahawks are like, we're going to take the injury risk. Maybe we won't fully guarantee against injury, but we'll go 6 years or something like that. You see that sometimes with these left tackles. So he's earned kind of close to the top of the market for a young left tackle, and which is great news in the midst of so much bad news this year. Right.
Well, and to be honest with you, what is it? 7 teams have 3 wins or less, and every single one of them have O-line problems. You hold on to the guy you got, right? Like seriously,
you can't go in with 0 players up there.
No, absolutely not. All right. This one's from Sam Brown. Agree or disagree? I'd rather be in the Seahawks' current situation than the current situation of any other team in the NFC West. I'm assuming situation means coaching staff and players, not record, because I think we'd all take a different record. But I'm assuming that's like the situation they're talking about. The players, the coaches. That's what I'm running.
It's a hard question to ask and to answer. Jeff, you go because you'll be better at separating your loyalties out.
I think that's a very optimistic view. I'm not laughing, but I think right now, if I'm objectively analyzing, I think the Seahawks are in the worst place in the NFC West. The Niners still have this. They have Brock Purdy and this collection of A-list talent with a coach that's proven at the highest level. The Rams, their quarterback's getting older, but they've accumulated a lot more proven talent, young talent, with a coach, again, that you would bet on over Mike McDonald. And I would have thought the Cardinals were by far in the worst spot long term, but I got to give them credit. I don't love the quarterback, but what I love about their coaching right now is they're getting the most out of what they have. They have some young talent. I don't love their ceiling, but I think you can see in 2 years that regime has really put together a team, an identity, and they're playing as one. And I think that's what I want to see from our coaching staff. And right now, the Seahawks do have a nice collection of talent, but I think they're kind of what we talked about earlier. I think of the 4, I don't think they're super far off. They're not the Tennessee Titans, but I think right now, they're in the worst spot of the 4.
I think that's a totally reasonable take. If you asked me, would I trade our roster and coaches for each of the division opponents? The Cardinals, I'd say no. I actually wouldn't. I think the Seahawks have better talent, and I actually believe in their coaching. And so, no, I wouldn't. I understand, like, people have heard me talk about the Cardinals. I think that they deserve to be first place right now. I think they've been most impressive team in the NFC West, I think pretty clearly. But I don't love their talent. I don't think their rookie class is that great. And I don't think their rookie class from last year, although Paris Johnson has had a nice year, but for the most part, I don't think they have the young talent. The Rams, that's an interesting one for me. Like, everyone's like, oh my God, look at what they've got going on. Another great rookie class. I look at that team and I'm like, it looks like the offensive line they spent all this money on is a shit show. And Matt Stafford looks like he's done. And they don't have another plan. And I don't think Cooper Kupp or Puka Nacua have looked particularly super dangerous. They look like possession receivers. Like, you've got two possession receivers, but they have not looked very explosive. So I think that we could be 2 or 3 games away from being like, oh, I'd much rather have the Seahawks roster than the Rams roster. I think the Seahawks were already clearly better than the Rams in the last game they played, and they should have won despite all those errors. So, like, I'm not there on the Rams. The 49ers are the unfortunate one because they have, I think, the best quarterback of that bunch, who's young, and they have the best rookie class, for my money, in the division. Renardo Green has grown into a really good corner. Dominique Pooney is a great right guard, unfortunately for the Seahawks. You can go on. Malik Mustafa is a legit quality starting safety. We knew that immediately as soon as it happened, Jeff. And you can kind of keep going on with them. So I think that they just have all these blue chip players, and they have a new young class, and they have good coaching. I could not reasonably say, oh yeah, we should keep what we've got. That doesn't make sense. That's the one team that for me, but the other two, I don't think so.
I hope in the last 8 games. And again, that's what I love about the NFL. Everything's fluid. Like, if you would have asked me about Arizona 6 weeks ago, I would have said they're a joke. And all of my opinions are fluid. So prove me wrong. Go out these last 8 games. I hope I'm with Sam at the end of the year.
So we have 2 questions left. Joseph Dillo wants to know, we talked about Ernest Jones already about he says, do you guys think Ernest Jones taking over the defense will change it significantly? But here's what part because we talked about that already, but this is a good part of the question. And does this force the Seahawks to sign him to a deal? I think the assumption is they didn't go get him for a rental. Is that your guys'? I mean,
they've got to sign him. It follows all the Schneider tendencies. Like, I think the only question is how much, because definitely the Jordan Brooks stands are going to be looking at those dollars and cents. And if it's significantly more than Jordan Brooks, who knows? If it gets up to the Patrick Queen number, then you'll have people really going like, what are you talking about? So, yeah. But Jeff, I assume you feel the same way. They're going to sign him.
Yeah, I think it's a no-brainer. I think they got him to be the Mike linebacker of this defense for the future. His age is, yeah.
So this is our last question. And it was actually the second question asked, but I saved it. So it's from Old School Seahawk, who is a good friend of this show. But question for each of the members of the panel. What was your favorite memory from any game you attended in person? And conversely, what is your worst experience?
Oh my gosh.
I know.
Brian's
we're gonna be here a while.
Yeah.
I mean, I'll go first because I got one that's easy. Like, I mean, my best, not going to be surprised, being there for the NFC Championship when they beat the 49ers. I was on all the NFC Championships. They were all amazing in their own right, but beating the 49ers was, it was better than the Super Bowl by a long, long shot. I was at the Super Bowls too. So that's the best. The worst, why don't you guys do your best and I'll come back to my worst.
Jeff?
I've been to a bunch of Seahawks games in different cities. In Seattle, I've only been to about 5 of them. I haven't been at the slew of games that Brian's been, so my moments are very select. The first 2 games I was at were pretty cool, though. I was at the Leon Washington 2 return game against the Chargers, Pete Carroll's first year. And that was the first time I was ever at the stadium. I was like young. It was a team that no one cared about, and the energy in there was one of like watching a kick return for a touchdown and then Earl Thomas like pick off Phillip Rivers to end the game. And I was also at the game where they were down 21-0 to the Bucks the year they won the Super Bowl. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, I flew all the way out here to watch them lose to Mike Glennon. And then like they had so many cool plays after that, and then like they took over the game and they won that game, and it was like felt like it like kicked off the second half. It was kind of like the Lions game the other day where like you're like, this team can't be beat. They have it. That was the game. So like the energy in the stadium when they won in overtime was so cool. And then I was at the opener this year, which was like we had such a cool thing being like up front. We were sitting in like the 5th row. Like it was so cool to be at that game with Nathan and with Evan, and that was unbelievable. So I saw that. The worst moment was, unfortunately, last year I came in and San Francisco beat the crap out of us. Then the stadium was littered with Niners fans. It was Thanksgiving. It was just like, we all are like, we convinced ourselves before the game, like, okay, Pete Carroll always gets up. And then, like, the second we got in the stadium, they just got, like, crushed. And, like, me and Evan are just, like, drunk and yelling about Brock Purdy. And it was just so demoralized. And Evan was so demoralized and kept saying, it was like, I need to get out of Seattle. So that was not, it was such a fun day, and then it just ended on such a low. For me, that was the lowest I've seen.
Man.
One of the other worst moments too, I went to Buffalo, the first game of 2008. And 2008 was like, 2007 was one of my favorite Seahawks teams. And it was pouring rain in September. I remember my passport got completely soaked. I didn't bring the proper rain gear. And Marshawn Lynch, funny enough, ran all over the Seahawks. And that like Seahawks team I really thought was going to be good. Like they're close. Mike Holmgren was like getting ready. And they had like 6 injuries in that game with like all these key guys all went down. You're like, this team is screwed. And it was such a like long drive home. Man. That was bad. That was really bad.
That sucks. How about you, Dayna?
So I go to a lot of away games because I'm in the Midwest, right? So it's easy to get to a lot of these. But I've not been to like a playoff game or anything like that. So it's hard for me to say, oh, I was at the NFC Championship game, because I haven't done those. But I'll tell you, there was a couple of like iconic moments that I was lucky enough to be at. And the first one was actually in Seattle. It was the first time that the Seahawks played the Saints again after the Beastquake run, and they ended up still beating them. It was a Monday night game. I think that's the night that they broke the sound record or whatever. That energy in there was just so much fun because that team was really, really fun. But I also got to go to Houston in the game where Houston was killing Seattle, and then Sherman intercepted that ball and lost his shoe, and he ran halfway down thing. So I was at that game. You were
at that game?
It was very fun. And I will tell you, the Houston fans, I had a great time with them. They were great. Awesome. But it was so funny to see him running down there. And so that was fun. And then by the same token, probably the worst game that I've been to is I was in Dallas. I'll never forget. It was the day the Royals won the World Series when Ricardo Leckett got hurt. And it was horrible because I didn't have the TV to tell me A, who it was, and B, what had happened. You know, you're in the stadium and it's dead silent. There's 100,000 people in there. It was dead silent. And I thought someone was dead. I was just horrified. So that's my worst football moment, because you didn't know what had happened. And luckily, obviously, you know, he lived. He didn't play another down of football, which is probably smart. But so, yeah, that was probably the worst, just because we didn't know what was going to happen. So.
Yeah, my worst, I guess I would say, is either maybe the Colt McCoy Giants loss, which I really just hated, or the game in Arizona where Sherman Cam played their last game, and got hurt. That was I knew Sherman did his Achilles, and I was like, we're not going to see him again. That was it. That sucked. But yeah, good questions. Yeah, thank you, Dayna. Thank you, patrons. Patreon.com/hawkblogger. We've run a little bit long. You guys have a few more minutes to talk game?
Sure.
I got lots of time.
All right, let's talk football. Let's talk Seahawks. Let's talk Seahawks versus 49ers. So, If I told you two that only one team in this game has a win against a team over 500, not only one win, 2 wins, but there's only one team in this matchup that's beaten a team with a record over 500. Who would you think that would be?
The Seahawks.
Well, I'm assuming it's I know the Seahawks have it. So
It is
you're
the
saying
Seahawks.
They have
San
two of
Francisco has it?
The San Francisco has not beat a team with a record currently over 500. So
Including Seattle.
if you want to go back and look at who the 49ers have beat, the 49ers have beat the Jets. The 49ers have beat the Patriots. They have beat the Seahawks. They have beat the Cowboys, and they have beat the Bucks. Those are their victories. So I just want to set the stage a little bit that this is not the 9-0 San Francisco 49ers. This is not the crushing teams every week. What's their largest win? I would bet it's their win.
Probably the Jets game.
The Jets
Patriots.
game.
Yeah.
13 points is their biggest victory. So this is a 5-4 49ers team that barely scraped by the Bucks, who had none of their receivers. Name me a Bucks receiver that played last week. Name me one.
Keyshawn Johnson.
I'll give you $5 if you can name one.
You said
That's what I
Keyshawn
thought.
Johnson. Yeah.
Joe Jurevicius.
These were the receivers for the Bucks last week. Ryan Miller, Raheem Jarrett, and Sterling Shepard.
Sterling Shepard. Really?
Yes. So the Seahawks are 4-5, but they have beat 2 teams with a above 500 record, the Falcons and the Broncos. They beat the Falcons badly.
Yeah.
In Atlanta. And the Seahawks have almost like a completely new defense. The last time these two teams played, it was the third game in 11 days the Seahawks had played. They'd gone to Detroit. They came home. They had that terrible thing against the Giants, and they had to play the 49ers on short rest. They didn't have Byron Murphy. They didn't have all these guys. You also had Geno Smith uncharacteristically inaccurate in that game. Missed JSN on an easy third down. Like, he has not had a game where he's had games where he's turned the ball over, but he has not had games where he just missed open guys like that this year. That was that stood out as a game. And you had a game where Stone Forsythe was your right tackle. He gave up 10 pressures all by himself. So tell me that I'm crazy. Tell me that I'm crazy that the Seahawks have business thinking that they got a chance to win this game. Why am I crazy?
You're crazy.
Tell me why. Give me reasons.
The
Give me
offense,
reasons.
right? Like, we've spent this whole entire show talking about the defense and how it's changed and how they're getting these players back. But if the offense can't actually make it work, and if that line cannot protect Geno better, so he's not, throwing the ball too soon or too late or being hit so he gets picked off 3 times, it's not going to matter because they won't be able to keep up. I think the defense is going to be improved. Fingers crossed, hopefully. It looks like it should be. All arrows point in that direction. Brian, I have no faith in this offense right now, DK or no. I'm really struggling. I'm really struggling with that aspect of this game because at the beginning of the season, that was the one thing we didn't think we were going to have to worry about.
Jeff, what's your take?
I think I'm mostly with Dayna. I think the big swing factor is Bosa. I think if Bosa is either not playing or is limited, that swings everything. Every time the Seahawks have played the Niners since Bosa has been drafted, Bosa has been the best player on the field. Better than Trent Williams, better than McCaffrey. And he's dominated the Seahawks. He's made and he's the kind of rusher that can just that I think Charles Cross really struggles with. And if it was going to be Mike Jarrell against a healthy Bosa, I was I don't know if I can watch this game. But if he's limited or not playing, they don't have a defensive lineman that takes over the game. And again, I I don't like Bosa, and I can't stand how good he is, but he just matches up so well against this offense. And so I think the one thing that I could see, Brian, I could see hope is that injury. And if he's affected, and if Lucas can come back and they have their edges okay, and they don't have the kind of guy who can crush their interior of the offensive line, if like Hargrave was healthy, or they still had a healthy Armstead or something like that. But again, I'm mostly with Dayna. Like, these corners have given DK a lot of trouble. We haven't seen Geno play well against the Niners. I don't think we have the pass protecting team to make him feel better. But if I think Bosa's had such an impact on Geno. Just, he always feels rushed. He always feels like he needs to speed up, and he just has lost himself. If he's not playing, I think that could open up a lot of stuff, and that could kind of alleviate a lot of my concerns, because I'm with Dayna. The offense completely lost the Rams game, and this is a much better defense.
I'm madly trying to look up a statistic, so I'm going to keep looking that up. I will say this. All those things you just said were true the last time these two teams played. More so. Like, none of those things are different this time in terms of like, none of them are worse, I would say. There's no reason to think any of those things have gotten worse. In fact, I would say there's reason to believe that they've gotten better. You're not coming in on short rest. You're coming in off of bye week. You're not coming in, hopefully, with Stone Forsythe at right tackle. You're hopefully coming in for the first time all year, potentially, with your starter at right tackle. Even if Abe Lucas plays the worst game of his career, it will be better than the right tackle play that we've seen from the other guys. I mean, that's the reality. We are talking about DK Metcalf and Geno Smith, who know that Geno Smith went into that game knowing what he wanted to prove against the 49ers. And part of the reason he was so pissed about that route DK ran and the interception there is like, people forget they had the possession to take the lead there.
They did.
And so Geno's just like, you're killing me, dude. Like, he didn't tell me this. I'm just saying, like, that's what I saw in his reaction is like, I cannot listen to one more person tell me that I can't beat the 49ers. You can't do this to me. I don't think DK Metcalf's going to make that mistake again. I think DK Metcalf, even though he said he didn't listen to what Diamador Lenore said post that game, he knows exactly what Diamador Lenore said about him after that game. JSN had not had a 180-yard game. I think that this offense is going to know what they have struggled with, which has been some like crazy Murphy's Law stuff going against them. I think that there's a good reason to hope and believe that Connor Williams will not snap the ball 75 yards over Geno's head 15 times this game. Like, I think that there's reasons to believe that you've had enough of that these guys are going to come in with as much focus as they have at any point during the season. And you're going to have a defense that I think is playing with more confidence. Like, they saw what they did. They saw the tape. They know what they did worked. And now they're going to come in and like refine it. And I think they want to come back and prove that they can be better. So what I see is every single arrow pointing to the Seahawks playing better in this game than they did in the first time. And in that game, they played so poorly, and they still had the ball with a chance to win 3 different times in the fourth quarter. So I'm not buying it. I think that people are overestimating this 49ers team. I think people are forgetting that they lost to the Rams. They lost to the Cardinals. They just for the first time have gotten over 500. So I think there's a little bit of shell shock from who the 49ers were. I left that first game pretty unimpressed with the 49ers relative to who they've been in past years. Still better than the Seahawks, not arguing differently, but they have not been the dominant team that they were before.
But they were missing Christian McCaffrey. And maybe I'm giving him too much credit, and that could very be. And yet they also had some injuries at the beginning of the year, but I just think unless that defense can figure out a way to stop him, that's why I said it will make me happy if they do. that just adds that extra layer that they've been missing. I hope you're right, Brian. I really would. It would change my perspective on this team right now, which isn't really grim. It's just kind of meh, right? And so I think that to see that type of fire out of this team and to see them up to this challenge, I think that would really change. It doesn't change where I think the trajectory of the season is going to go. No, but it would change the way I'm feeling right now about this game. So I really hope you're right.
So,
ahead,
Brian, you
Jeff.
look like.
No, go ahead. Go ahead.
I was
go
going to
ahead.
say, like, I was kind of flimsy on what you were saying until you got to the end. And the one thing I've been saying all year, and I'll saying again, this team for the 49ers is different. They're more vulnerable than they've been any year of this little run here. Every one of their like wins, even like they were blowing out Dallas. Dallas got back into that game. Tampa Bay with no receivers, and they missed 3 kicks. They're first and goal at the 5-yard line with multiple backbreaking penalties from San Francisco. I thought that, and then Todd Bowles went into a shell again and got conservative and played to lose 5 minutes later. But the Seahawks game, like they usually blow the doors off them, and then that third quarter, the Seahawks won like 20-0. Even the Patriots game, like they were pushing them at the end. Like the old Niners, when they were a juggernaut. This team's not a juggernaut. I've been saying all year, they're kind of like the 2015 Seahawks. I still am on that take. The names are still there. They still look good when everything's clicking, but they're not the same. I am fully on board with that one.
So what I was trying to look up is the 49ers are front runners too. Everyone's like going to focus on this game in a lot of ways. Kyle Shanahan's a front runner, and he's not a good one at it. He loses 10-point leads like nobody's business. But they need to get ahead. They need to be ahead. They are not a comeback team. And so I don't think this is a 4-quarter situation. I think that the 49ers do not take the Seahawks seriously anymore. They have no reason to take the Seahawks seriously anymore. They've been a joke every time they've played for the last few years. And you could just see, like you can smell the smug on that roster. It's just like, oh, I friggin' hate that team. And so if the Seahawks go in there and they punch first, I'm specifically talking defensively. If the 49ers can't just run over them like they've been so accustomed to doing, and if you're talking about the end of the first quarter, the Seahawks being up by 1 point or more, whatever that looks like, 49ers have been a 500 team since 2022 when they've been behind by a point after a quarter. They are a 21-7 when they're ahead. Like they're a much different team in that situation. And you could say that's probably the case with a lot of teams. I could look it up for all these teams. I can almost guarantee you the numbers are for the 49ers. When they don't start strong, they struggle. And so I think this is a 1-quarter game. I think the Seahawks, the way this game is at the end of the first quarter is going to tell us a lot about how this game is going to finish. And I think that Mike McDonald's had 2 weeks. I think Ryan Grubbs had 2 weeks to look at this team and look at their team and figure out how they want to attack. And I'll call it here because we're definitely in time for predictions. I've got the Seahawks winning this game. And you might just say that's homerish. But as I put out earlier, I will go over my record. I've only picked 2 games incorrectly this year. I picked the Detroit game wrong. I picked the Giants game wrong. If any of you picked them to lose against the Giants, you're just a hater because no one should pick them to lose against the Giants at home. But I picked them to lose against San Francisco the first time. I picked them to beat the Falcons on the road when they had lost a bunch in a row. Mm-hmm. I picked them to lose to Buffalo, and I picked them to lose to the Rams. So
they should have won that game.
I know, but I'm just saying, I have not just picked the Seahawks every time. I believe the intangibles, I believe the changes are going to favor the Seahawks. I know Christian McCaffrey's back. Brandon Ayuk is not. I think this is going to be the game that turns around our perception of this season for the Seahawks, even if they don't win it, which I'm predicting that they will, I think this is the point where they stick a flag in a field and say, you're not going to run over us anymore. That's what I'm looking for this week. So that's why I am picking the Seahawks. I'm going to say the Seahawks are going to win this game 27-24. Dayna.
Sorry, I'm in a little bit of shock still. Good for you. I love it. Nathan on Blue Sky also posted, even though he committed, that he thinks that they win this game. He really thinks that they. So
Really?
Nathan was saying that. Yeah. So Nathan said that on Blue Sky earlier. Someone's like, save it for the podcast. He's like, it can't be on the podcast. I got to say it now. It's funny, as you were sitting there, as you were talking, it did remind me a bit of a conversation I had earlier this week about the Chiefs and how they're 9-0, but they don't feel like an unbeatable team. They don't have that same charisma. They are squeaking by with these wins. But when they played San Francisco, they beat them handedly. And it's not the Chiefs that we're used to. So that's an interesting point, that this is not that juggernaut team. I do agree with that. Still don't think Seattle wins. It's in San Francisco, correct? Am I right about that?
It is.
Yeah. Oh God. I still don't think that they win this game. I don't think it will be a blowout. I also don't think it'll be super high scoring. I think maybe they lose, I don't know, 2017. That's going to be my guess. I think the defenses will take over a bit. The Nick Bosa thing is absolutely the key, though, Jeff. You are 100% correct on that. And that could really be a game changer for them. But from what I've seen from the offense, I just am not there yet, Brian. But again, even if they don't win, if they can manage to continue to evolve that defense, I'll be happy.
Jeffrey Simmons.
This is a big show me something game from the Seahawks, especially defensively. I think to beat San Francisco right now, you got to be really physical. I think you got to punch them back in the mouth. Mm-hmm. I think they're super vulnerable right now. I think they're living off the past. It's funny because like last year when they were rolling and Brock Purdy for MVP was going around and I was the one being like, he's not the MVP. And oddly enough, now that I don't feel comfortable in the Niners and like as a team, I think Brock Purdy's playing great. Mm-hmm. And so it's funny how that's flipped for me. Like I would say Purdy's playing far better this year. And I know like David Lombardi, who's like into like all these advanced numbers, would say like he was like the number one quarterback in the league last year, which I would have thought was laughable. It's funny how that works. I think if the Seahawks had a little more of a physical offensive line, I would be right there. It's just I have such little faith in that interior O-line and just getting them screwing up the game. I can't pick Seattle. But I think that there's reasons it could be close. And so I do think San Francisco has the horses that Seattle just doesn't right now. This is a game where, again, it's going to be tough because it's kind of like a sort of a measuring stick defensively. But if things don't go well and San Francisco does well, I can kind of live with that because, again, I don't think they have the horses yet. So it's going to be a weird game. I just need to see it play out. But right now I say San Francisco 27, Seattle 20.
Got it. One last thing I wanted to ask of you guys, or at least if you knew this. Well, first of all, do you think the Seahawks offense played well against the 49ers in the first game? No. Right? No. Would you be surprised to know that was the second most yards and the third most points scored against the 49ers all year?
I would have been until you read out that list of teams.
Yeah, me too. I think you're right. That's a good point.
Yeah. They have not played very good teams this year.
Played, right.
Even like their losses. Their losses that were not against great versions of the Rams and the Cardinals when they were flailing. And
the Chiefs are okay, yeah.
Well, Patrick Mahomes, I mean, we talked about Geno's game. Patrick Mahomes had 150 yards, no touchdowns, and 2 interceptions in that game.
Oh, yeah. They
like, it's fascinating when I look back at this game. I was like, I was shocked. People saw it, was watching Hawk Blogger Mornings. They saw me see it for the first time in real time on Tuesday. I was like, what? Geno Smith has the most yards against this, passing yards against this 49ers defense by a long shot. Wait, what? It was his worst game maybe one of his worst games of the year. So like, I'm really, man, I hope I'm right for a lot of reasons, but I'm ready to be hurt again. I'm ready. I've healed enough. I'm ready. I'm hardened. I'm calloused. I'm going to be in the press box, and my God, do you have any idea how hard it's going to be for me to keep a lid on things if the Seahawks actually beat them? Like for me to not well, I won't say because I'll be kicked out before I even get in, but
you'll have to go in the bathroom and like scream into your hands or something.
And if I get to do post-game show on the field, I'm gonna have to find a turkey leg somewhere. Like,
oh man.
Come on.
Man.
Resurrect the Russell Wilson Sherman moment. That would be amazing. You're brave going. Good for you. I don't think I could do it. Oh,
it's gonna be rough to sit in that press box, but people will look forward to. Hopefully, I am looking forward to. Grant Cohen and I are doing a in-person pregame show from Levi Stadium. So tune in Sunday morning for that. That should be a bunch of fun, and then we'll do the postgame show. And there's no way around. There's only through, my friends. We're gonna find out one way or another whether this team is making a step forward or we're sliding back down the pole. So with that, any closing thoughts from you, Jeff?
I think this is a big game for Geno Smith, man. There's people who call me a Geno Smith hater. There's some people who call me a Geno Smith lover. I think I'm pretty objective about him. Some people will disagree with that. I think I tell you when he does great things like the Detroit game, the New England game, the Atlanta game. I think what I tell him and I want to see better. So fair or unfair, so much of his kind of reputation, maybe in the building, maybe with the casual fan, has been like, can this guy play great against San Francisco? It's not fair. The teams have been completely unbalanced in all 5 of those games. It's not fair. But I want to see them put up a fight. And I haven't felt that they've gotten that. And it's not just from him. It's from everything around him. But I want to see him lift up in this game. I think this is a big deal, man.
Dayna, closing thoughts.
To kind of piggyback on that, I think it's an even bigger game for Mike McDonald. We need some stuff from him, and we need to see that he can get this team up for a game. But it'll change the trajectory of his entire season. And he could go into next season even just knowing that he managed to beat San Francisco once. I think that is a huge feather in his cap and will go a long way with the rest of the coaches and the players. So while it is on the players to do the job that's in front of them, I think it could be a huge shot in the arm for the coach too.
Really, really well said. I missed a super chat earlier from Jacoby. He says, in a weird way, Harbaugh gives Carroll vibes in comparison to his time in San Francisco.
He kind of does.
That's funny. Fair statement.
It does.
We make sure you tune in tomorrow morning. I've got a little bit of a surprise guest, someone from Seahawks Twitter who I have found entertaining and wanted to meet. I don't even know this person's first and last name. I just know their Twitter handle. They will be on with me tomorrow morning, 9 a.m., talking some Seahawks. This person is entertaining online. I think that they will bring it as well on the show. So tune in for that. Friday, we have Mike Sando. We'll talk then. Jeff and I will be back on Saturday for Seahawks Saturday before I fly down for the game. And then, as I mentioned, Grant Cohen for the pregame on Sunday. Until then, please give the show a like, click subscribe. Make sure you follow Dayna O'Gorman, both at Dayna OG on Twitter, as well as on Blue Sky. Jeff Simmons, at Real Jeff Simmons. I think it's the same on Twitter and on Blue Sky. You can follow, I think Josh Cashman's over there. Evan Hill's over there. I know Nathan Ernst. Nathan Ernst has been over there forever. Yeah. So everyone's over there. Mina Kimes is over there. The NFL, the Seahawks. So plenty of people over there. Check them out. I'm Brian M. Hauser. You can find me at Hawk Blogger in all of those places. This has been episode 340 of Real Hawk Talk. We hope you have a wonderful rest of your night. Take care. Hey folks, this is Brian M. Hauser. Thanks for listening to the show. Hope you enjoyed it. Want you to know that Real Hawk Talk is available on all major podcast platforms. Go ahead and subscribe. Have all podcasts delivered directly to your phone after each and every show. And then go ahead and leave us a 5-star review. Helps us out, gets more people to the show. Then, if you haven't already done it, go to patreon.com/hawkblogger and subscribe for just $5 a month. Gets you immediate access to our Slack channel. Join hundreds of folks in that community to talk Seahawks about wins, losses, and all things in between. Not to mention become eligible to win giveaways for Seahawks tickets and get to ask questions
of the Real Hawk Talk crew every week on the show. Finally, if you haven't gone to hawkblogger.com recently, head on over. Tail the Tape morning after articles are there every week. Hoping to see you there. Thanks for tuning in. Thanks for supporting the show. Go Hawks.